Hello, everybody. This is Stephanie Hansen from the Makers of Minnesota. As we move forward into this time of coronavirus and trying to understand what our new normal is going to look like and what the landscape will look like for the people in Minnesota and the makers that serve them, for the restaurants that carry their products, for the grocery stores that stock them, for the farmers markets and events that are scheduled and hoping to take place, we will continue to try to give you the stories of the makers as we can. There are some technology challenges from all of us working at home and internet speeds not being as awesome as maybe they used to be, but we will produce stories and we will put them out and we will try to keep you up to date on what some of the local makers are doing in light of this changing landscape. If you have story ideas or things you think that would help move the maker movement forward, please feel free to reach out to me anytime at shansen, Hansen, marketing@gmail.com. Also on my Instagram, Makers of MN, my Facebook, Makers of MN, or my Twitter account, Makers of MN. Also, you can find me at Stephanie's Dish on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. I look forward to helping us navigate these challenging times by providing a familiar voice, some laughs, and introducing you hopefully to some new makers and the new innovations that they are undertaking as we move forward in these unique times. Now on to the podcast. Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you are listening to the Makers of Minnesota, where we talk to cool people doing cool things. And today I get to talk about food, which, you know, is always one of my hallmarks. I'm here with Pete Sieve, and he is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Meal Magazine, which is a new magazine that has busted out onto the scene. They've got one issue that has published. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to have you. It's good to talk with you.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit about your background. Were you a writer at Heavy Table? Is
Sure.
that where you kind of came from?
Yeah, it is. I mostly in my adult life, I've been a professional musician, touring around the country with a couple of different bands and doing a lot of stuff, playing guitar. And,
Another really easy job.
A really easy job. Yep. Really, really easy. Super lucrative. You make a ton of money. It's really glamorous. But I started getting into food writing in about 2009, and I was always really kind of a big fan. I'd been geeking out on food stuff since college and was a really big fan of a lot of different writers. I went to St. Olaf College.
Okay. You were an Ole.
I was an Ole, yeah, exactly. And I always was just kind of really into the more social, political side of food, and was a big fan of the Heavy Table in town. Read them religiously along with Dara and everybody. And I kind of cold emailed Jim Norton at the Heavy Table one day to see if I could maybe try my hand at writing about food. And he was like, sure. So I ended up being a staff writer over there for a good chunk of time, and it was great. Had a lot of good experiences there.
I have a lot of fondness for Jim and Becca. Becca
Sure.
actually worked for my company when we first started it a long time ago. And I remember at that point I had a radio show, Weekly Dish, about food with Steph March, and they were trying to figure out, I mean, they were very early on in the space about how do you monetize like this digital format, and it's so hard.
Yeah, it's incredibly
hard. But their content was so good. And when they stopped publishing the digital version, I was so sad. He ended up going to the Growler.
Yep.
And you can find him there. And I really think he's doing incredible content over there.
I agree. I think the world of Jim. He's my mentor in this whole thing. We kind of jokingly refer to him as the godfather of Meal Magazine.
Yep.
So my co-founder, Josh Page, was also a staff writer at the Heavy Table. So the ending of the Heavy Table kind of precipitated Josh and I putting our heads together and coming up with what is now in existence, which is the first issue of Meal Magazine. It was kind of a slow burn and slow build towards just kind of wanting to do something ambitious and staying in the food space, but trying to kind of do it in a different way.
What was it that you felt was missing that you took such a big risk?
Well, I think Josh and I have always just both been big fans of deeper storytelling, of kind of more complex, more three-dimensional, difficult storytelling, stuff that really encompasses more of just the human condition and how we all kind of relate and relate through food and bev. And I mean, you can go any number of routes through that. So something I think that Josh and I were seeing in the space in the past couple of years was a lot of food coverage kind of falling away from more authoritative critical voices and ending up on like Instagram with influencers and things like that.
And top 5 wings.
Yeah, which is totally fine. It's just a different thing. And you know, there's a real interesting kind of split, I think, in media in general today, where, you know, we do the old school kind of journalism is kind of fading in a lot of ways, and things are being kind of picked up by people who have online presences who may or may not be experts in what they represent, and generally will just kind of talk about anything if they're getting paid to do so.
Yep.
And so I think it was partly a reaction to that, and also just it wasn't born out of a negative energy space for us. It was kind of just seeing the landscape and what it was, and wishing that there was something out there that we really loved, which maybe would be a collection of really fascinating stories that just take a look at humanity through food. And that's kind of what we wanted to come up with. I think I was really influenced by The Lucky Peach.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. I was a huge fan. It was such a great magazine. They had some of the best food writers in the country.
Started by David Chang.
David Chang and Peter Meehan. Yep. And they went under, which was super sad. And
do you think they went under just because, I mean, it's obviously a difficult endeavor. They had huge overtime. They had a full staff. They were selling ads. And do you think they went under because they couldn't fund it, or because they just didn't know where to go with it?
I have no idea. I mean, I remember reading Peter Meehan's letter from the editor in the final issue.
Me too.
And it was, I think he was implying very heavily that it had nothing to do with them not being financially viable, and that there were other forces at work that kind of
that's
forced
what I
them
got
to kind
too.
of shut the thing down. And he seemed really embittered about it, which is, I can see why. It seemed like such a passion project for him and the other like editorial staff there.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess, you know, in the time span since the heavy table went away, Josh and I had just kind of thought about what we might want to make if we could make something. And it didn't even start off. We didn't really even start talking about a magazine. What we did is started an Instagram account.
I remember it starting.
Yeah, and we roped in some of our other favorite food personalities and writers and thinkers in town. Just because I think Josh and I are very, very self-conscious that we're both two middle-aged white straight guys, you know, and we have plenty of us in the world talking about things. And so we reached out to our friends, Mecca Boss, who was the food editor of the City Pages for a while, and she's just an incredible food writer and chef. And we reached out to Soleil Ho, who is just a force of nature in that space, and she has since gone on to now be she was hired as the head food critic at the San Francisco Chronicle, which is super exciting. So for a minute there, it was me and Josh and Mecca and Soleil, and also Paige Latham, Didora now. Actually, she's such a great beer writer and food writer as well, and she came on board. So that was our little crew, and it was just kind of like a for fun, casual thing for us to do. Like, and I think at the time we felt like we were kind of crusading for a little more authenticity in talking about food around town. In the face of a lot of like, you know, Instagram presences that are a little more calculated.
I recall having lunch with Mecca before the magazine launched, but she was really rolling around, you know, what was her place and what kind of things was she interested in contributing to anymore. Yeah. She was feeling a little less like just doing sort of the standard restaurant coverage and wanted to look at what the deeper stories was. So when I saw the magazine and I saw her involvement, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense, because she'd been looking for a vehicle for that. Yeah, yeah. So you decide you're going to do this, and it's on Instagram, and that's cool because Instagram's free. Yep. And then how do you decide you're going to actually publish something, which I owned a printing company, perfect binding a 4-color magazine on high-quality matte paper is not an easy task.
It's not easy, and it's not cheap. It really was an idea that started germinating in my mind. It was like last winter. We'd done the Instagram thing for a while. We'd kind of built up a bit of a following. It was fun, but it was kind of like, okay, you know, what are we doing this for, really? And I just felt like something in me felt like I really wanted to try for something a little more ambitious. And I brought the idea to the crew, and everyone was like, okay, sure, let's do it. And
had you ever done a magazine before, or even produced an ad, or?
No, God, no. No, I'm a total naive rookie rolling into this thing. I mean, I've had experiences here and there, doing some agency work and things like that.
Sure.
But like nothing like this, where it's just all on me to kind of like figure this out. So at the time, my thinking was, let's just come up with a collection of cool stories from great writers and actually kind of reach out beyond the borders of the Twin Cities and our region here and see what we can put together, even if like I have to go to Kinko's and photocopy and staple it, just something we can make.
Mm-hmm. Can I just stop for a second?
Sure. Yeah.
That thought right there is the crux of the 160 some episodes I have done here. And you articulated it very well. Like, there's something about the people that I talk to, whether they're making software or they're making a business or a publication or a piece of art. Mm-hmm. It's just like it wells up in you and has to get out into the universe and see the light of day in some way.
Yeah, that is exactly it. It was just a thing, and I think I had for a while wanted to do something a little more ambitious, but it never really could kind of land on what that was just for myself in that space. And this was the thing. And Josh got really excited about it. The team kind of shifted around. Soleil took off, because she got an incredible job,
right?
Right, for the Chronicle. She's like the most watched food critic in the country right now, and Mecca does a ton of things that Eat for Equity, and she's super busy, and Paige does tons of stuff. So it really came down to me and Josh starting to spearhead this thing, and we just started reaching out. And I thought of like, okay, like we want to make something that can be nationally viable. So what does that look like? What kind of stories do we want to tell? Like, what's our angle? And it really just came from a place for he and I of a desire for meaty, like deep stories that you can like really curl up with for a while and kind of process that aren't facile, that really just kind of take you somewhere.
Is it a compliment or insulting if I tell you that it felt like Savoir?
I don't really know, because I don't really read Savoir.
So Steph and I, my radio partner on Weekly Dish, really both appreciated the coverage of Savoir, because it really, her and my takes are really different on things typically. She really comes at it from like a journalist perspective and a storytelling perspective, and I tend to come at things more from the eater perspective of just, does it taste good, feel good, is it a good experience, do I want to participate in it? And we both really liked the in-depth stories that you could get there. And your magazine, when I saw it for the first time, I was like, oh, these are stories that I've been missing. Because you don't get something like that in a Fine Cooking. You don't get it in like an MSP magazine unless that's the cover story, right? Sure. Because you're getting more listicles, you're getting more of a package that's put together. Yeah. So I really appreciated that longer form.
Well, that's a giant compliment, I would say. And thank you for saying so. And I mean, that was the intent. And I think that was kind of the thinking for me and Josh was, okay, look, like, there's a lot of publications out there and a lot of people and writers doing things like that, like all the things you just mentioned, and doing it really well. Sure. I mean, locally, at MSP Mag and Minnesota Monthly and Eater, I mean,
City Pages,
there's plenty of coverage. Like, there isn't really a whole lot of need for another publication around here. I don't think that, or at least for us to
do another best of the Twin Cities.
Yeah, talk about the next best restaurant or the top 10 burgers this year or whatever. And that's just not the kind of, while I enjoy those things and, that there's a place for that stuff in my life, I think Josh and I are just similar in that we just geek out on the reflective bigger stories, the stuff you're talking about. So that's what we wanted to do. And we just started reaching out and basically just opened up a business credit card and formed an LLC in my own name. And that's where we
did what every good entrepreneur does and maxed it out promptly.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's the thing we're confronting now as we go towards issue 2 is how to free some of that up again. But it was really just a leap of faith and like, you know what, screw it. Let's just give this a shot. And it was really, one of the first people I reached out to was an old buddy of mine named Jake Luck, who's our art director now, but he's a musician in town, but an incredible artist and designer. And I knew right off the bat that if we were going to try to do this, I just wanted to talk to him. And we ended up having a 5-hour coffee conversation and just like, you know,
it's very beautifully art directed.
Thank you. Yeah, he just killed it. And we wanted to, it was really important, I think, for me, and then Jake helped me articulate this even further, to really just have it be a holistic feeling product altogether. Like it's just as much an art book as it is a food magazine, I think. So I kind of love, you know, it. How to put this? I mean, you know, for any first effort at something like this, I think, especially if you've never done anything like this before, you don't know exactly how it will take shape. I mean, you can make all your plans, right? But I was pleasantly shocked and surprised kind of with what the magazine ended up being, that it ended up being something far beyond what I was imagining in the beginning, because I was involving these other people who had different ideas, and we really wanted to kind of have it thread the needle somewhere in between, like art book, food magazine. You know, I mean, there's a lot going on there, and I think it's really just, hopefully at the end of the day, just something that's got some beauty to it.
What was your first press run?
Quantity-wise, 1,000 copies. Yeah.
And is the goal to sell advertising? Is the goal to increase the press run? Or is you crowdfunded it, people could support you through Patreon?
Yep. So the biggest, it's the most important thing we did by far, is to make the choice to try to make this like more of a people-powered endeavor. So we went to Patreon as a platform, and it's been absolutely amazing. We have right now 171 patrons. And even when we first put it out there, when we had people sign up, I was just like thrilled and shocked that anybody was like, "Yeah, I'll give you $5 a month or $10 a month."
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this is incredible! Like, there's people out there who believe in what we're trying to do, and we haven't even proven ourselves yet. And that's just grown and grown, which is wonderful. So that currently gives us this like baseline monthly support that we can count on. And it's crucial. If we didn't have that, there's no way we would have been able to make this first magazine. There's just no way. None of us have a wealthy relative that can toss us $10,000.
Sure.
So the Patreon thing
is that about how much it is for your press run?
That only printing costs.
Yeah.
It was
so that doesn't include
about $10 per issue.
Yep.
And then about another $10,000 just to pay contributors and, you know, Jake to art direct the
photographs
thing and everything, all the art and all the, you know, and a big goal for me and Josh was to make sure we were paying people fairly, because, you know, this is an industry where a lot of people get hosed. And,
you get 10
and do
cents
a lot of
word
work for not enough money. We've all been there. So yeah, the Patreon thing has been really huge, and we're going to try to really lean into that harder as we go forward. It just makes more sense. It feels more sustainable to kind of have a community that believes in what we're doing, that we kind of keep close and keep them kind of on the inside. It's kind of like having a backstage pass to how we make this magazine.
Yeah, and you can invite them to events and activate them in other ways.
Totally. So we're trying to get more creative with how we do that. And so, you know, you're listening and you want to support what we're up to, that's kind of a great way to do it. It's the way we're doing our subscription model, too, so that if you're a patron, you're a subscriber, even at the lowest level. So if you're giving us $5 a month, you're going to get every magazine we put out, which will be 2 per year, hopefully, for a while. Plus tons of other stuff, which is like early access to the events that we produce or special deals. And, you know,
tell me about that, because a lot of magazines rely on event production as a way to fund the business.
Sure.
Is that something that you see funding your business?
It is, and it has. We that was something that was important to me at the outset for this as well, which is, you know, we're writing about people primarily. I mean, these stories are about like how we all come together through food. I mean, food is just like happens to be the vehicle that we want to use to kind of take a tour of the human experience. And I think those stories and like producing these stories and kind of making them and putting them out into the world, reinforcing that with actual real world ways in which we can come together and make connections makes it that much more powerful. And it's just selfishly, I think it's super fun, and I love to do that. So, but financially and from a business perspective too, I think it makes sense, because as you're saying, I mean, you know, $10,000 just to print, you know, just for the paper and the printing for 1,000 of these is insane, and we're not going to get there, you know, not for a while at least, with just our patrons alone. So we have done two official meal magazine events so far, both of which were really fun and really successful. And our goal with events, my goal is to make, if we're part of an event, if Meal's producing or co-producing an event, it's just got to be something really special. We're trying to produce unique, immersive experiences that kind of go beyond just a typical pop-up. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just we kind of have a mind to do them in a way that feels a little more magical.
Well, and I think you have a brand identity now too.
Yeah.
It's not, this is going to sound rude and it's not meant to be. It's not really like hipster because it's a lot more sophisticated than that. But if I look at your magazine and then I'm buying a ticket to an event, I have an expectation that something more is going to happen than just a good meal.
Yeah.
Just in the way that the content is presented to me. Like, you're going to want me to think, you're going to want me to commune or connect or
That's
have
great.
some experience.
That makes me feel really good because that's the goal. I think
that.
That's good. If that is the case and you're connecting with that, that means we're being successful to a certain degree with our intentions, which is to, I just think there's plenty more room in the world for all of us to kind of like try to create something, just special things together,
Yeah, and it is interesting to think about that because one thing I learned as a business person, and it was a hard lesson, was that there is more when you're abundant with your, like if you come from a scarcity mindset, you end up with very little. And Yevang always talks about this, and the way he says it is so much better than the way I'm saying it. But he talks about his dad.
Yeah.
They had a lot of kids, and there was food on the table, but everyone was trying to get their share.
Yeah.
And the way he talked about, we are better if we are abundant in our thoughts than if we are scarce. And, a lot of people are super competitive. They're afraid that they're not going to get their share. And I don't think it's very Pollyanna-ish to really open your mind up to be like, what is that?
Right.
If you produce good work and you lead with integrity and you present that into the universe, I firmly, firmly believe that there are no magic secrets here. Like, unless you're doing something like, I don't know, Google AdWords, which nobody knows how it works, writing a story and putting it in a magazine and getting someone that wants to fund that, there's no magic secrets.
Sure.
It's just about how you present that and how you put it into the world. And thinking that, we all have some secret sauce here. We don't. Like, I was a publisher at City Pages. I wasn't the publisher. I was the director of sales. And, every month, every week, we had this publication and we knew how much it cost and we knew how many ad sales we had to put into it. And that meant how many sales reps and how many calls they needed to make and how many presentations they needed to have and how many contracts they needed to write. And at the end of the day, it was kind of math.
Yeah.
And then the magic that we created around all of that and how you get people excited about it. And I mean, that's really what it was. Right. And if you can catch that, like, I have such fond memories of this very finite window of time at City Pages where we were just killing it and really delivering for the advertisers, for the readers, for the writers, for the team that we had.
All coming together.
Yeah. So when you talk about like putting this together, I get really jazzed for you because it can be super fun.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, it is fun. It's, we're all I'm tentatively the leader of this thing along with Josh, and like, we're newbies. We're writers, and I think we're good writers, and we know we know what we're looking for, and I think we're really good curators. And I think we've done something really special and really proud of what we've made.
But is it more work than you thought?
Oh God, it's so daunting. Yeah, it's crazy pants. Like, man, like just turning the ship from pointing in the direction of just kind of like production and finishing the magazine and like just making the thing, now to shifting it in this other direction, which is, now we're a publisher. And what does that mean? And,
because
we have
you
to sell this thing. We have to get press. We have to like try to figure out how to do the next one.
And what is the brand? And is the brand extensions? And
it's a lot to juggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing that there's more. There's all of a sudden all these hats hanging on my coat rack, and I got.
Is it exciting or?
It's super exciting. Yeah, I generally feel really, really excited and thrilled about it. I mean, anything I think that any one of us tries to do like this in our lives that has an inherent amount of risk and kind of like, a high probability of failure is stressful too. And that's just part of the deal. But I think as long as I can kind of live in that headspace on a day-to-day basis, being like, this is like something we all believe in, and like a lot of other people are believing in it too, and man, that feels good. And just to kind of lean into that energy space a little bit more, and give ourselves, and I really can only speak for myself, but give myself a bit of a break and understand that I don't have to know exactly what I'm doing all at once right away. I'm learning.
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Because as a musician,
mm-hmm.
that's probably really a different line of thinking for you, because when
Mm-hmm.
you're a musician, like, you play what you know and you
Sure.
improve upon your craft, and you don't just pick up an instrument that you've never played before and think you're going to make a record,
Yeah.
which is kind of what you did here.
Yeah, totally. I've likened the process of making this magazine to making a record many, many times, because it's really my closest point of reference, and I've been a part of making a lot of records in the past. But yeah, as far as that goes, I mean, like, it's just I've been learning that it's just so important to just talk to as many people as I can.
Yeah, because you never know.
Have the coffee meetings, like, just stay open.
Do you think you'll incorporate ads?
We did in the first issue. So yeah, that's something I meant to answer earlier because you asked, but we did. Setting off with this thing, I mean, ideally, anybody would love to not have to have ads in their magazine.
Sure.
If you're making an artful publication.
Yeah, because it's a disruptor.
Right. But I wanted to kind of balance that out because I just know I don't think it's super realistic to expect to be able to crowdfund every issue. And I think there's a lot of really good opportunities to partner with like brands and companies that we actually really love and believe in. And I think, as a brand and as who we are behind this thing, like we have a certain set of values. We're not trying to we don't have like a heavy mission statement like carved into the magazine. Like, we're trying to just kind of show that in what we're producing and not telling it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's plenty of brands and companies out there that align with us in that way, and that we would be proud to kind of partner with in a way that makes sense for us. So in the first issue, we did 6 full page ads. And my choice in publishing this was I don't ever want ad space to be sharing space with content on a page.
Mm-hmm.
So we're only ever going to do ads if they're take a full page or a spread or something like that. So we did. I reached out just with the personal connections.
Can I ask why you thought that?
I just personally don't enjoy flipping through a magazine that's been clearly, there's people behind it who care so much and, spend so much time designing and art directing it. And then, your eyes bump into, an ad sharing a page with, the end of the article.
Like a junior page
reading.
Ad where there's a couple of blocks of text above it and down the side.
I don't even know the lingo, but that sounds right. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that either. It's just not what I wanted to make.
Yep.
And that part of that came from how much I admired the design of the Lucky Peach.
Mm-hmm.
And they started off with no ads, but then they started doing ads, and the ads they did were very considered, and you could tell that the designers worked together to integrate them into that magazine to make it feel natural.
How much is a full page ad?
In the first issue, we charged $1,000 for each.
Okay.
And I was shocked that anybody was willing to even do that. But it was great. Like we worked with, I reached out to people I know who have great companies in town that also have a bit of a national reach. So our benevolent, wonderful, ever-loving one. I'm trying to think of a list of compliments I can butter up our ad partners with while I talk about them. But we got Bittercube in here.
Sure.
And Nick and that crew,
they were a podcast guest very early on.
They were willing to throw in and Bolo, which is the new hard seltzer brand from Bauhaus. The Bauhaus folks are really good friends of ours, and they were willing to buy an ad. And the Big Watt folks, which is the canned coffee brand of 5 Watt locally, and we love 5 Watt. I used to work there. I've known those guys forever.
We podcasted with them a couple weeks ago.
Caleb and Lee.
Yeah, the caffeinated water. I'm just crazy about it.
It's so good. So they were super cool about trusting us that we were going to make something great and putting in. Alex Roberts at Alma.
Sure.
We did 3 ads in the first issue, one each for cafe, hotel, and restaurant. And we actually, Cafe Alma kind of became the unofficial meal magazine office.
Yeah.
As we
could do worse. It's a great spot.
I know, it's a great spot, and it's just like the perfect all day cafe. And I live so close to there, and we just ended up having all our meetings there all the time. And and they were always so nice to us. So it was really cool that they were willing to do that. But yeah, so we did do some ads in the first one, which helped a lot. It covered like about half our printing costs.
Yeah. So more ads. So if you're listening and you're interested in ads, that's
if you're
great.
out there, we actually just we're kind of already trying to gear up for, I think the game has changed now for us. We got the first issue into the world, and it's so much different actually having a thing to be like, hey, look, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Without having to describe it so much, you can actually just hand this off and say, check this out. This is what we're doing. And we're national. We're in bookstores all around the country right now. And we're trying to, I think it's really important for me and for us to keep positioning this as being not stuck in any particular place. I mean, we can write about anyone, anywhere. And the bottom line is these stories need to just feel universal.
Do you think you'll zone ads then at some point? Because like an Alex Roberts, hotel, but
sure,
cafe maybe not having global reach.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I'm guessing so. This is just, I'm really learning as I go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God, it's crazy. So
and on-demand publishing is making it more possible that in the day, you had giant plates and bigger runs and now with publishing, you can variably insert ads potentially by zone or by parts of the country, by state even.
Yeah, we haven't even thought about that stuff. I mean, that if we end up having to think about that, I know we'll be in a good spot. That would be luxurious. But for now, we're kind of just concentrating on moving towards the second issue because I think we've proven that we've done something pretty wonderful.
When will it come out?
We're hoping July, maybe August at the latest.
And are you planning on another event at this point?
Yes, we're actively kind of planning out 2020 for events.
Okay.
I think our first event that we're going to produce will hopefully be either very end of April or early May. We don't know exactly what that'll be yet, but it'll be wonderful. Whatever.
So the best way to get on the list is to be a patron.
Yes, being a patron is kind of like the way to be if you're into what we're doing. I mean, it's great. You can contribute as little as $5 a month, or you can go up. If you got deep pockets, you can go as high as you want. And that way you're just kind of on the inside track with everything that we're up to. But even just following us on Instagram is really great. Like we've been growing there by leaps and bounds. We've got a really quality engaged audience, which is super awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice to know that people are just paying attention and invested in what we're up to.
Yeah.
It's really
I'm
rewarding
excited
every
for
day.
you guys.
Thank you. So yeah, issue 2 is coming. We're working on it. We're working on our next events and trying to figure out exactly how to make some of these other beautiful stories that exist out in the world kind of blossom and take shape in the form of this magazine and some other ways.
It's a great time. There are so many good stories, and it's good to see some of the non-traditional people in the restaurant business that have been there all along that we didn't get to see.
Yeah.
So whether it's the dishwasher or the person that is a cottage industry that starts in their home, or just people, I mean, we have so many people involved in the restaurant industry. People of color weren't very well represented.
No.
And to hear some of those stories and to just see what that experience is like, because it is different than what my experience would be. And just the food, too. We're getting so much more adventurous, as it were, of, the Twin Cities is a pretty cool place. When you consider that we're not a very diverse population, we are pretty diverse from a food scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's fun to have this be, I know it's national, but that it's birthing here.
Yeah, it feels good to me. I'm a lifelong Minneapolis resident, and all of us on the team are rah Minneapolis. We love it here, and we love what's here, and we always want to be embedded here and kind of have our roots be here, and we'll always be writing stories about what's going on here too. But I think the stories that we do write that focus on anything around here, I think are just as appealing to somebody in Atlanta or Oakland, if we're writing about them the way we intend to.
Which is cool because it's a very different perspective.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of the idea.
Well, I hope people will subscribe by being patrons of Meal Magazine.
Me too.
Follow you at Meal Magazine. I've been talking with Pete Sieve, and he is the co-founder and the editor-in-chief of Meal Magazine. It's beautiful, and I think for the listeners of this podcast, that you guys are on the cutting edge. You're always highlighting makers and shopping local and trying to support local folks. This is a great publication to support, and I hope you do.
It is. Thank you. And I suppose I should add, too, if you want to pick up a physical copy in town here, we're at Majors and Quinn in Uptown, which is like my favorite bookstore for sure. And we're at the Nicollet location of 5 Watt Coffee and the Lindale location. They're just sitting on the counter. You can buy them there. Winsome Goods in Northeast, which is an amazing boutique clothing store. Gifts, other stuff like that, and we're working on some more spots. We got more places coming online.
Yeah, so. If anybody is listening and wants to carry the publication too, you can reach out to me or reach out to them on their Instagram.
Get in touch.
I'm sure they're looking for places to distribute as well.
You got it.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you for having me.